Concerning uterine blood of a Gentile woman and Tohar blood of a Taurus, the Shammai renders both of these bloods Tahor. But Beis Hillel says the blood of each of these women is like her spittle and like her urine. The blood of a woman who gave birth and did not yet immerse in a mikveh, Beis Shammai says it is like her saliva and her urine. Beis Hillel says it generates tumah both moist and dry. But Beis Shammai says concede is sorry. But Shammai concede concerning a woman who gave birth in a state of tliva that her blood generates tumah both moist and dry. A woman who bleeds in labor is considered a niddah. If a woman was bleeding in labor for 3 days within her 11 days of potential tliva, if she had a relief for 24 hours and then gave birth, she is deemed to be one who was given birth in a state of ziva. These are the words of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yeshua says, a night and a day like the night of the Shabbos and its day. This means that if she had relief from the pain but not from the flow of blood. How long can a woman labor last? Rabbi Meir says even 40 or 50 days. Rabbi Yehuda says a month of childbirth is sufficient for her, and Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon say there is no labor for more than 3 weeks.
So now I think we actually have to take a couple of steps back over here and just to understand these last two Mishnayos, because they were not simple. And the principles in these Mishnayos are actually like really, really important for understanding a lot of stuff in Niddah. Okay. I mean, this is really central to the whole idea. Now, first of all, the way we've got to get out of our heads for now the current practice, which is basically just to treat every blood as Niddah blood, and as a combination of Niddah and Zava Gedola. Okay. We are extremely machmir in our practices these days. When colors go to their color teachers, they teach them basically a shita that is choshesh for both Niddah and a Zava Gedola. Okay, but we're looking in the Mishnah now as according to the original Din Doraisa. Okay, what's the Din Doraisa? That at a time when a woman is expecting her period, and we're going to have to circle back, this is like one of these chicken and egg situations where we're going to have to start somewhere. So let's just leave a placeholder for time when she is expecting her period, time period, okay? And she bleeds, however small the amount. I mean, there's like a little drop of blood that's visible, the size of a grist in terms of stains. But let's just say she bleeds. Let's say if she clears up for 1 day, and she stops bleeding after 1 day, or if she and actually doesn't matter if she bleeds for another 6 days. Okay, all that she does is at the end of the 7th day, after her bleeding has started, right towards the evening, she can do a bedika. If the bedika comes out clean, she goes to mikveh that night and she's tahor for her husband. Okay, Niddah is 7 days. Zehu, that's it. There's nothing else. Okay, and it doesn't matter. And there's no such thing as clean days for Niddah. There's no that's just if she's expected, she can bleed up to 7 days. And if she's clean at the end of the 7th day and can do a bedika, she goes to mikveh that night. Okay. As soon as her Niddah period ends, from when she goes to mikveh, she now has 11 days of presumed tahara. Okay, not that anything it's a period when that's the time when her Niddah is not expected. Okay, and that means that if she actually does bleed during that time, she is called a Zava, not a Niddah. Okay. Now, Zava and Zav are mentioned are like this. It's the female and the male, but they're obviously very different because a Zav is something that comes out of his male organ, and it's not blood. But so we call it but we call them by the same term because both of them are going to ultimately require 7 clean days, and both of them bring a korban at the end if it's a Zav Gadol or a Zava Gadola. Although it doesn't look like the woman requires Mayim Chaim, where the Zav requires Mayim Chaim. Okay. Now, so let's get back to the Zava. She bleeds once during the 11 days. All that she has to do is have 1 clean day thereafter. If the next day she is clean, she goes to mikveh that night. Similarly, if she bleeds 2 consecutive days during the 11-day period, on the 3rd day, she stays clean. She checks herself. She goes to mikveh that night. Okay, that's called a shomeres yom keneged yom. Okay, so she has to check, make sure that she doesn't have 3 consecutive days. If she has 3 consecutive days of bleeding during the 11 days following her niddah, that's a problem. Now she's called a Zava Gedola, and now she has to count 7 clean days from the last time she bled. Okay, 7 days entirely clean of blood. So she can't start on the first day and say, okay, well, that Mechzi Yom Kippur, that's or can she? Wait, I don't think no, I don't think she can. I think she has to have a proper clean day. Um, and after 7 clean days, if she right after her 7 clean days, then she goes to mikveh again, and that's done. Now, um, and if there's a base of mikdash, then she also has to bring a korban. All right. So we have at the beginning we have 7 days of niddah. Then after those 7 days of niddah, you have 11 days of ziva. All right. And during those days that the bleeding is, as I said, um, and if you and then after the 11 days of ziva, come her niddah, that then comes her niddah period again. Okay, if she bleeds thereafter, that's considered niddah blood. So here's an interesting little quirk, is that if she bleeds on the 10th day and she bleeds on the 11th day, she's a zava, and then she bleeds on the 12th day, which is now part of her niddah period, she now becomes a niddah. There's no that 3 days is cut in half, and she now is considered simply a niddah. She waits. She can bleed as much as she likes after that, and then after 7 days she goes to mikveh. Okay. So those are just some very important things. Now we talk a lot in these Mishnayos about, and we're going to have another one today about a woman who is struggling during her labor. She's starting to have contractions, and she bleeds during her pregnancy. So the way I'm understanding this, and I can't see any other way of understanding it, but it's not explicit. So I fully acknowledge over here that I might be interpreting it wrong. But my understanding is they talk about niddah and ziva periods during the pregnancy. And I think, well, I mean, how does that happen? Because a woman doesn't menstruate when she's pregnant. Okay. So what's happening is that some kind of blood came out of her during her pregnancy, and we treat that as niddah blood. No matter what, if it happens, Lamase, there's no way for her ziva period to begin unless she has a niddah period first. So let's say she's at some point in her pregnancy and she bleeds once. Say, okay, she's a niddah. 7 days later, she goes to mikveh, and now we've got an 11-day period. And now she bleeds again. And she bleeds again on 3 consecutive days, let's say. Now she's going to become a zava while she's pregnant. Okay. And if she subsequently goes into, and if during that period while she's a zava, she starts to have a contractions and gives birth, then that's called a yoledes bazava. She is a zava who is giving birth, and there's some interesting little edge cases around that. So now we're going to have to take a look at this inside our Mishnah over here. We saw yesterday certain a bunch of cases. I don't want to dive too deep into yesterday's Mishnah at this time, but basically we're saying there's a machlokes in here about whether when she is actually having her contractions and she goes into an extended labor, does the blood that came out during that extended labor count as ziva blood if it's for more than 3 days, or does that count as simply the blood of giving birth? And it comes out basically that the machlokes is really around if she has a false labor and bleeds during that false labor, and then the contractions stop, and then for like a whole day, and then she goes back into labor again. This is where we could have a situation where she becomes zava during her labor. Anyway, let's go into Mishnah Vav. So she gave birth to a girl, and then returned to her husband, and immediately became pregnant. And now having become pregnant, she now starts having trouble in her pregnancy. Then all the called damim. So remember, a girl has got 80 days of tahar, up to the 80th day of tahara. So any blood that comes out of her is tahar. So even if she starts having whatever contractions in her early pregnancy and blood starts coming out, this is all tahar. Until she actually miscarries. At that point, once she's miscarried, she's tame not because of niddah, but because of childbirth. Right? Childbirth, of course, comes with that extra, comes with a tumah. Rabbi Eliezer metame. Rabbi Eliezer says that anything that comes out is metame her. This is because it's connected to the childbirth. He does not give her the 80 days credit. Amru lo Rabbi Eliezer. They said Rabbi Eliezer, Umab makom shehechmir b'dam hashofi, hekel b'dam hakoshi. We saw in the previous Mishnayos, and this is why I wanted to go through all this before. We said that if in the case of where a woman started bleeding and then stopped, that's dama shofi, is when the contractions ceased. So they were stringent on the case of the blood that came out of her when her contractions ceased. Hekel b'dama koshi, but they were nonetheless lenient if she was in contractions for an extended period, and then that blood is considered blood of childbirth, not of niddah. Makom shehekel b'dama shofi, but yeah, in this case, where even if she stops having contractions during the 80 days following childbirth of a girl, Eino din shenakel b'dama koshi, shouldn't we also be lenient with blood that happens when she's having contractions the entire time? Amar
You
lahem,
saying, you saying she had contractions after she gave birth?
yeah, she's having
Oh,
she's having contractions in a second pregnancy. In,
okay, all right,
within the 80 days of having given birth to a girl.
all right.
So okay, so she's having it's basically she's busy miscarrying Rahmana Litzlan, and she's having these contractions and pains, and now and Chachamim are saying, well, this is not damni. We were going to be makil on this dam, and they said zakal v'chomer to Rabbi Eliezer. Amar lahin. Rabbi Eliezer says no. Dayo leba min adin lios kanidon. You can't do more with a kal v'chomer than what had the original. Mimahe kel aleha. What did we say that we were makil with on the case of the dam shofi, when we said that if she takes a break from from her contractions, we said that she's not tame from tumas ziva, but aval mi tumas nida. But in this case, she's still going to be tame with tumas nida. The Chachamim disagree with the Rabbi Eliezer because they say that you can learn out from the pasuk teshev al demei tahara. It's an extra word teshev, meaning that it's one yeshiva for all types of blood, and not no exceptions, not for nida, not for ziva. It's all tahor. Okay, Mishnah Zayin, Kol echad asar yom b'chezkas tara. So the entire 11 days following after she's been to mikveh, she will be presumed to be tahor, even if she doesn't check herself, because her period is not expected during these 11 days. Yashvala velo badka. Okay, now after these 11 days, if she moves, we're now on the 12th day, and she just didn't bother checking, or she made a mistake, or some honest prevented her from checking herself. Hezida v'lo b'adka, or even if she was mazed and she didn't check herself, nonetheless she is presumed tahor because she still got the chazaka of tara. However, higia shas vesta, if she is a woman who has a fixed veses, and she has a cycle on a regular basis every, let's say, 26th day. Okay, if she gets to that 26th day, v'lo badka, and she hasn't checked, we give her a chazaka of being tameh because that's the day that she normally comes on. So unless she actually checks to exclude that possibility, we presume that she is on. Rabbi Meir Omer im haisa b'machaveh v'higia shas vesta v'lo badka harei zot tahora. If she is in hiding, let's say there are people chasing her, or you've got a situation where she is where the adrenaline is pumping, and then he says this actually will prevent her from having her period, and therefore we don't, even if it's over her period time, then we don't presume that she's tahor because of the fear stops the blood. אבל ימי הזבה שבשמרת יום כנגד יום, הרי אלו בחזקת טומאה. However, so when you've got a male who is a zav, or a woman who's a zava, and even Shomer's Yom Keneged Yom, when she's a Zava Katana, when she's just had 1 or 2 days of bleeding, and she just has to keep one day clean, and then she can go to mikveh. They stay in the chazaka of tuma, and we cannot presume that if they fail to check themselves, we cannot presume that they have that they are now that they have did not bleed again. And so you can't rely on that in order to go to mikveh thereafter. Okay, Perek Chamishi. Yotze Dofin, a child born by cesarean section. En yoshvin alav yimei tuma v'yimei tara v'en chayvin alav korban. So this takes the child completely out of the rest of the parasha of all the tumas and taras and the korbanos. Says if there's no days of tuma and tara as with a natural birth, and furthermore the mother doesn't even have to bring a korban later. Rabbi Shimon Omer Harei Kayolod, he respectfully disagrees and said, "I'm sorry, who said anything about having to give birth naturally? It's a child. You've given birth to a child. All the obligations come together with it." Okay, and Mistama the halacha follows the Chachamim. Let's see. No, it doesn't. Okay, Kahati doesn't mention what's the halacha like. Like I have this natural inclination to want to say, okay, no, I want to paskin like Rabbi Shimon because all of my children are born by cesarean. But that's just me. Kol hanashim mitam os beveis hachitzon. Women become tame even if the blood has not completely left their bodies. So as soon as they feel the flow, or even if they checked internally and found blood internally, but there's nothing showing outside, that nonetheless makes them 100% tame. The blood would be so dami yezova bivsara. It's bivsara. It's in her flesh. It's still considered tame. Aval hazav balkari, a man is only judged to become tame until it actually comes out of the body, and that's when they become tame. Okay, we have gone a lot over, but we needed to do a lot of explanations today, so let's do what chazar as we can.
Okay, a lot of stuff there.
Yeah.
All right. This is Aleph Gimel.
Yeah.
Earlier it says there are 4 women whose time suffice for them: a virgin, a pregnant woman, a nursing woman, and an old woman. Yeshua says, I heard this law only with regard to a virgin. However, the law is like Reverend Eliezer. What is meant by a virgin? Any girl who has never discharged blood in her life, even if she is married. Regarding a pregnant woman, her time suffices for her only from when her fetus becomes noticeable. Regarding a nursing woman, from her time suffices for her until she weans a child. If she gave her child to a wet nurse, or she weaned him, or she died. But Maya says she remains tumor retroactively for 24 hours, but the Talmud say her time suffices for her. What is meant by an old woman? Any woman for whom 3 periods have passed when near her old age. Eliezer says any woman for whom 3 periods have passed, her time suffices for her. And Rabbi Yossi says a pregnant woman and nursing woman for whom 3 periods have passed, the time suffices for them. Okay.
Okay. Next.
Okay. Test Aleph. From when are their olives susceptible to contracting tumor? From when they exude the moisture of the holder, but not the moisture of the porous box. This is according to the words of Beis Shammai. If Shimon says the measure at which moisture renders the olives susceptible to 3 days, the Hillel says when 3 olives stick to one another. Rabbi Gamliel says when the processing is finished, and the sages say the position is as CC said. If he finished harvesting his olives but needs to purchase more, or if he finished purchasing but intends to borrow more, or if he then befell him a mourning or a banquet or a compelling situation that even a zava walk upon them in a tahor. If Tommy beverages fell upon them, only the place in which they became into contact with the olives is Tommy, and the moisture that seeps from them is tahor. When the processing is finished, they are susceptible to tumor. The beverages fell upon them; they are Tommy. The moisture that seeps from them, Rabbi Eliezer regards as tahor, but the sages regard as Tommy. Rav Shimon said they did not argue concerning the moisture that seeps from the olives, which is tar, but concerning that which they did argue, concerning the moisture that comes from the pit, that Rebbe Eliezer regarded as tar, while the sages regarded as tame. One who finished his olives and left
And
over
that's
one.
it. That's
That
it.
was it.
Yeah. Okay, and again.
Okay, get move up. Nagayim that appear on the Caracas or the Kabakis are confined tummy for as long as 2 weeks with two symptoms. They are confirmed tummy, living skin, or with expansion. With living skin, either initially at the end of the first week, at the end of the second week, or after the nega was declared tahar. With expansion, either at the end of the first week, at the end of the second week, or after the nega was declared tahar, they can become fine tummy for 2 weeks, which equal 13 days. Clothing is confined tummy for as long as 2 weeks and with three symptoms, as is firm tummy, deep green, deep red, or expansion. With deep green or deep red, the guyam either initially or at the end of the first week, at the end of the second week, I'm sorry, at the end of the second week, or being discharged tahor. With expansion, either tahor, either at the first week or at the end of the second week, or after being declared tahor, is confined tummy for 2 weeks, which equal 13 days. Houses which are confined tummy for as long as 3 weeks and with three symptoms: deep green, deep red, or expansion. With deep green and deep red, either initially or at the end of the first week, or at the end of the second week. The negative will be confirmed at the end of the third week, or having been derived declared tahor. With expansion, either the end of the first week, at the end of the second week, or the end of the third week, or with becoming tahor. They confined tummy for 3 weeks, which equals 19 days, and no guy remain confined for less than a week or no more than 3 weeks.
Okay.
A base test. An animal born by cesarean section and one that follows it, Reb Tarfon says both must be left to pasture until they develop blemishes, and they may be eaten with their blemish by their owner. Reb Akiva says neither one is a bracha before the first because it did not open a room, and the second because it was preceded by another. If one buys an animal from a non-Jew and is not known whether he is born,
Hold on a second. Just it's Rabbi Akiva. Never mind. Okay, I thought it was Rabbi Shimon for a second. Carry on.
if one buys an animal from a non-Jew and is not known whether he is born his first offspring or not, Reb Ishmael says the offspring of a goat in its first year certainly belongs to a Kohen. From here in it is questionable. The offspring of a ewe is in the second year, certainly belongs to a Kohen. But here on it is questionable. The offspring of a cow or donkey in its third year certainly belongs to a Kohen. From here on it is questionable. Rabbi Akiva said to him, if offspring alone would exempt the animal, it would be as if you said, the sign of an offspring is small livestock, a womb discharge, or livestock, or in live livestock, an amniotic sac, and in a woman, an embryo, or an amniotic sac. This is the rule. With any animal knows who are previously born as first, the Kohen receives nothing. And with anyone that has not born its first, the first male offspring belongs to the Kohen. If it is questionable, it may be eaten in its blemished state by the owner. If Eliezer says, Ben Yaakov says, if a large livestock animal discharges the mass of the blood, it must be buried and exempt from the laws of the Korah. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says if one buys a nursing animal for a non-Jew, he need not suspect that it was offspring of another animal. If he entered among his flock and saw that those that had born but birth were nursing, and those that had previously given birth were nursing as well, he need not suspect that the offspring of this one came to that one, or that one offspring came to that one.
Okay, let's go. Adkan, I'm gonna go off to Shakris now. I'll let you do the last two. That's
We will.
Sota and
Have a
Shah.
great time. Goodbye. Thank you. Be well.
Okay,
Thank you.
fine.